Hello, dear friends, and welcome to your weekly astrology horoscope. This week, we are going to use a little different format because I want to show you some important things about Mercury retrograde. This is the biggest news during the week because on Tuesday, the 13th of October, Mercury is turning retrograde for the following 3 weeks. And I want to walk you through the most important aspects and sign positions that Mercury will trigger. And after that, we are going to move to our regular weekly analysis. Mercury turns retrograde on the 13th, on Tuesday. But even on Monday, we may start feeling the stationary position of Mercury. So basically, from the beginning of the week, please be more cautious with everything that includes information, communication, documents, plans, traveling, and also all kinds of intellectual work. Some things may slow down as usual with Mercury retrograde. Other things may get a little bit more complicated or messed up, or we may need to change some of our plans. Mercury retrograde is not a positive time for signing contracts, for starting something brand new, like a new job, a new business, or anything else that you want to be lasting. If something is supposed to be temporary, or if you are aware that it will be changing in the future and that's fine by you, then of course Mercury retrograde is not a problem. But anything else that you want to be stable and lasting, please try to avoid this 3 week period. On the other side, some of the positive things that we can do during Mercury retrograde is reassess the past. Some things that need to be fixed or things that need to be changed or maybe restarted. Those are the best things we can do during Mercury retrograde. In communication also, we may notice that people from the past are calling us or we are meeting them by accident or we are thinking more about people from the past. Reconnecting, re-establishing those friendships or contacts is also something very positive during Mercury retrograde. And one more note I want to announce also is that besides the fact that Mercury is turning retrograde during this week, the other important event is the new moon in Libra, which is following Mercury retrograde. But on this topic, I will make another live, which will be on my Instagram account. So please join me on Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time to chat about the upcoming new moon. You may ask questions live, you may send them in advance, and of course, you can also catch up the recording after that. So Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time on my Instagram account. You can find the link below or search for my name, Marina Stoichkova. Okay, now back to our Mercury retrograde. The important thing is that Mercury is also changing sign positions. At first, it will be retrograde in Scorpio, which means that we need to be more careful with financial decisions, plans, investment. And honestly, I would recommend you to avoid taking some important steps during this time. If this is something that you are already doing, if this is part of your routine life, of course, you are not supposed to put everything on hold and just wait for Mercury to change positions. It's not applicable, it's not reasonable. But if this is something that you plan to do and it's like an investment you want to make and another type of important purchase, then I would recommend you to be very careful. And sometimes life happens in a way that doesn't allow us, to plan everything. And sometimes we need to sign contracts or start something new while Mercury is retrograde. If that's the case, then just make sure to check all the information. Make sure to, be aware of all the contracts or who you are talking to and so on. And we also need to say that not everything gets messed up while Mercury is retrograde. So please be aware of that. Also, if you want something to be changed in a short period, Mercury retrograde is also fine to start this project. Okay, so first, as we said, Mercury is in Scorpio, so we need to be careful with all the Scorpio activities, financial things, investments, and so on. We may also notice that we are more introverted, that we are more focused on ourselves and we are more introspective. That's also very, very possible to happen. Sometime during this period, and I will walk you through the exact date, Mercury will go back to Libra, which will affect more our relationships, communication with partners, and everything that has to do with beauty, with art, those type of activities we should be very careful with. And also, usually Mercury retrograde is not a positive time for getting married, especially when Mercury is retrograde in Libra. Things in relationships may not be so balanced and harmonious. And this is the other area where we need to be more careful. Now let's talk about the most important aspects that Mercury will have very quickly. And then I want to give you a couple ideas about each sign and how they can be triggered by Mercury retrograde. So first thing we notice here on the 13th of October, Mercury is in Scorpio and it turns retrograde sometime around the afternoon, I believe. And then the first aspect that Mercury retrograde is having is an opposition with Uranus. This comes around the 19th, 20th of October. Opposition between Mercury retrograde and Uranus. We need to be especially careful with financial decisions around this time because Scorpio and Taurus are the two signs that are related to resources and money. There could be some surprises or previous decisions may need to be reconsidered. And overall, there could be some kind of stress. That includes also communication and also technology. Computer stuff, your phones, your gadgets, everything, your software as well. Things can bring certain problems or we may need to be more careful with this. So around the 19th, 20th of October, we have this opposition between Mercury retrograde and Uranus. Okay, after that, Mercury is about to, sorry, a little bit before that, we have a conjunction between the Sun and Mercury retrograde. So around the 25th, 26th of October, conjunction between Mercury retrograde and the Sun. Also, it accentuates the position and can make things more intense. Great time for some kind of self-analysis, for reevaluation of your own plans, but also this is an aspect which can bring the risk of being too subjective. So make sure to try to look at things from an outer perspective, to try to understand other people's point of view, because Mercury retrograde in conjunction with the Sun can make us too subjective. So that's around 25th, 26th of October. And after that, around the 28th of October, Mercury is going back to Libra. And for the last 5-6 days of its retrograde phase, it will be in Libra. So as I said, this is the time to be more careful with our relationships, with partnerships, with negotiations, anything that has to do with beauty, with art, with the fashion industry, when it comes to negotiations and diplomatic negotiations as well, we need to be more careful. And the next aspect that Mercury retrograde is having is a square with Saturn. And this one comes around the very end of October and the very first few days of November. Basically, Mercury retrograde will turn or will change directions while it's also squaring Saturn. And this is not a simple position. So around the third, Mercury is turning direct again. And the square with Saturn may also bring certain challenges in relationships, in negotiations, communication with government institutions, with organizations. We need to be more careful with this, and if possible, try to postpone those important tasks. Things that we start around those few days, first few days of November, may be related with some kind of delays, or things can be kind of restricted, and overall there might be some kind of stress related to that. And after the third, Mercury is already direct, so things are supposed to slowly go back to normal. Remember that Mercury will be still in the shadow zone until it returns to the position where it got retrograde in the first place. So let's quickly check that. So around here, around the 20th of November, Mercury is again around the 13th degree of Scorpio. This is the position where in the first place it turned retrograde, which means that between the 3rd and the 20th of November, we might be able to reevaluate again things that didn't work during Mercury retrograde, or finally fix them and find the solutions and just move on. And overall, after the 3rd of November or after the 4th, we have the green light to start a new project, to sign the new contract, start a new business, and everything else that we would like to do. But between the 13th of October and the 3rd of November, Mercury is retrograde, so please be more cautious. Now, very quickly, let's talk through the most important houses for each sign so that you can really be prepared. For Aries, Mercury will be retrograde in 8th and 7th house. First in 8th house, then in 7th house. So first, you need to be more careful when it comes to investments, mutual finances, and resources. And around the last week of this period, you need to be more careful in your relationships. Things can be more complicated, or you need to reevaluate things. And please make sure to check your sun and rising sign as well. They are both important. For Taurus, Mercury will be retrograde in 7th house first, and then it goes back to 6th house, which means, first of all, the area of relationships can be kind of complicated or may require more attention. And then 6th house, which is the area of work, career, your health, and your daily plans. For Gemini, Mercury will be retrograde, first of all, first in 6th house, and then it goes back to 5th house. And you need to be more careful with work, with your health, and your daily routines at first. And then Mercury is going retrograde in your 5th house, which means that romance and personal connections and creative projects and communication with kids may require more attention. For Cancer, Mercury will be retrograde first in their 5th house, and then it goes back to 4th house, which means that you need to be more careful, first of all, with personal life, with your kids, with some kind of creative projects. And around the second, basically the last week of this retrograde phase, Mercury is going back to your 4th house, which means that family, home, and property issues are the main areas where you need to be more careful. Next, we have Leo. For Leo, Mercury will be retrograde in fourth house at first, and then it goes back to third house. So most of the time you need to be careful with family, with property issues, with communication with people that you live with. And the last few days, Mercury is moving to your third house, which means that you need to be more careful with communication, with contact, connections with other people, friendship, and so on. For Virgo, Mercury is retrograde first in third house, which is communication, your connections, contracts that you sign, education also, especially short-term trainings. Those are the areas that things can get complicated or something may change. And the last few days of this cycle, Mercury will be retrograde in your second house, which means more attention to money and all kinds of personal resources. Then we have Libra. Libra is one of the signs that will be triggered the most, but it comes more in the end of the period. So at first, Mercury is retrograde in your second house, which means more attention to money, finance, and resources. And the last week of this cycle, Mercury is retrograde in Libra, which means your own sign is triggered, your first house is triggered. So basically attention to everything that you are doing personally, all kinds of personal initiatives. For Scorpio, this is also a very significant period because most of the time Mercury is retrograde in your sign, which means that it affects you personally and you need to be careful with all of your personal projects, everything that you are starting on your own. And the last few days, Mercury is going back to your 12th house, which can affect you more on a psychological level. It's more introspective period, and it's time also to let go of the past. Next, we have Sagittarius. For Sagittarius, Mercury will be retrograde in 12th house at first, which means that you need to be careful, mostly for some kind of psychological issues. It may not manifest on an outer level that much. It could be more a revision of the past and things that you are ready to let go. The last few days, Mercury is retrograde in your 11th house, which can affect more your communication, your friendships, and all kinds of social contacts. Also, the plans that you have for the future. Those are the areas where you may go through some kind of changes. Next, we have Capricorn. For Capricorn, Mercury will be retrograde, first of all, in 11th house, which can bring potential issues in communication with your friends, with social contacts, with plans for the future. And then the last few days, Mercury is going back to your 10th house, which means more attention to career, social goals, and communication with authority figures. Next, we have Aquarius. For Aquarius, Mercury will be retrograde first in, let me see so I don't make a mistake. So first in 10th house, yes, which is career, social realization, communication with authority figures. Most of the time, Mercury is retrograde in your 10th house, and the last few days, Mercury is going back to your 9th house. Easier position for you, and it triggers mostly your long-term plans, your plans for traveling, and also for education. You may change something about it. You may decide to move in another direction regarding this area of your life. And finally, for Pisces, Mercury will be retrograde, first of all, in 10th house, which triggers long-term plans and education and plans for traveling. And the last few days, Mercury is going back to your 8th house, which can bring changes related to mutual resources, to some kind of investment. And those are the areas where you need to be more careful. So that's briefly the areas which are triggered for each of the signs. As I said, make sure to check your sun and rising sign. And I also want to remind you that even though Mercury is turning retrograde, life is moving on. So don't be too scared, don't be too afraid, and keep in mind that there might be also some positive surprises during this transition. This is the second part of our video in which we are going to talk about the daily horoscopes. And as usual, I will walk you through the most important things so that you can plan your whole week. Make sure to follow me on Instagram if you want to see the daily horoscopes in stories as well. So starting from Monday, we have Jupiter in Capricorn in sextile with Neptune in Pisces, a great aspect which can bring some kind of insights, some kind of intuition or desire to help other people to do something meaningful in our work. This aspect is especially positive for more creativity when it comes to practical tasks like business or career projects. This is the third time that we have this aspect, and basically the last time for quite a long time ahead. And it's especially positive also for learning, for new type of perspective, but also in a structured way. Neptune can allow us to focus on something more spiritual, and Jupiter in Capricorn can help us also to bring some kind of organization and structure. And this is actually exactly what we are doing in Mars Stars Astrology Academy. If you are still wondering whether you should join us, this is your very, very last chance to join this class. So check the links below. The other thing on Monday is a very positive aspect between Mercury and Venus. Right before Mercury turns retrograde, which happens tomorrow, Mercury is connecting in a positive way with Venus, which can help us to solve some things in our relationships, in negotiations, when it comes to our plans, and overall bring more harmony in our personal life. The moon is in Leo, which is very beneficial for things that require confidence and self-expression, and also things that are bringing us joy. This is probably the most beneficial day during the whole week. Even though Mercury is stationary, which means that we may start to feel things slowing down, things changing a little bit, we still have very positive energies around us, and the day actually can be quite positive. On Tuesday, Mercury turns retrograde, which means that we need to be more careful with everything: business, money, relationships, communication. Things can change, things cannot go according to our plans. And on top of that, we also have the sun in opposition with Mars retrograde. There could be tension, there could be confrontations, there could be struggles in relationships. So please be extra careful on Tuesday. The day is very intense and there could be potential challenges. The moon is in Virgo, which can allow us to be more practical, more grounded, focused on something concrete. But honestly, the day will probably not be that productive. So just mark it on your calendar and be more patient with yourself and with other people as well. On Wednesday, the situation looks better because the Sun in Libra will have a trine with the North Node in Gemini. It also means that there is a sextile with the South Node. And this is a very positive time to see things from a different perspective, especially when it comes to our future goals, our direction, what we want to accomplish. The North Node is our possibility for growth and for moving forward. And when the Sun also has this positive connection, we can see things from a different perspective. And this is also very positive for learning things, for relationships, for negotiations as well. The moon is in Virgo, which adds more practicality, more focus on concrete tasks, and overall, we may organize things better. Even though Mercury is retrograde, we know that sometimes we have to do serious stuff, even though Mercury is retrograde. The day can be beneficial for relationship, communication, learning as well, and kind of neutral for business and finance. On Thursday, we have another intense aspect between the Sun and Pluto. There is a square which can bring lots of tension and possible power struggles, especially with people who have more power. Some kind of institutions or organizations, we may feel like things are not supportive for us and we need to change our approach. On the positive side, such an aspect can bring extra passion and motivation and desire to move forward. And if something needs more force and kind of like, to do it in a harsher way, this aspect is supportive for those type of activities. Venus is also having a creative aspect with Mars retro, which can be positive for solving certain issues in relationships, in negotiations, maybe finding some kind of compromises and having a more creative approach. The moon in Libra emphasizes the importance of our relationships as well. And overall, the day can be intense and challenging when it comes to business and finance. In relationships and communication, we may find some solutions and compromises. For creativity, also the day can be beneficial. Next, we have Friday with our new moon in Libra. I won't focus on that much because there will be another video on my Instagram account. You can join me live on Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern, or you can watch the recording as well. You can see at the bottom here my name, Marina Stoichkova, or you can check the links below and hop on there. Generally speaking, the new moon is beneficial for starting new things, for initiating new projects, even though Mercury is retrograde. Probably it won't be something brand new, but restarting things that we have already done in the past. More focus on relationships, on negotiations, on finding compromises, and all the other stuff we are going to talk about on our special video. Saturday comes with a positive aspect between the Sun and Neptune. This aspect can bring more inspiration, more creativity, can allow us to be more intuitive, more sensitive as well, more compassionate, and willing to help other people as well. Especially positive aspect for creative projects, for connecting with the people that we love, for relationships, it can be positive. And on the other side, we have to mention that the moon is in Scorpio, which overall brings intensity, can bring certain tension. Communication is usually not very harmonious when the moon is in Scorpio. So be more careful with how you treat people, how you connect to them. They may need more attention. And on the other side, the moon in Scorpio is positive for spirituality, for energy practices, meditations, yoga, and also for some kind of financial decisions. Finally, on Sunday, we have also a couple of aspects that can be triggering us in a challenging way. The Sun squares Saturn, which can bring restrictions, resistance, some kind of feeling of, feeling overwhelmed, feeling like you have too many things on your plate, and potential challenges with people who have more power, or generally the feeling like you have to do too many things on your own. Overall, this is a challenging aspect, but on the positive side, it can make us extra responsible and focusing on our duties and following through and moving forward, even though it's difficult. Venus also has a challenging aspect with Neptune, which can bring possible challenges in relationships. Some kind of messy, unclear situations, confusion. Sometimes there could be lies or just misunderstandings. So be extra careful with your relationships and partnerships. On the positive side, this aspect can be harmonious for creativity. It can bring incredible inspiration and creativity. And the only positive aspect on Sunday is a quintile between Mercury retro and Pluto. Aspect which can allow us to dive deeper into exploring something and understanding and just feeling and working with the information on a very deep level. The moon is in Scorpio, so even more intensity, even more tension, and also even more ability to dive deeper and to understand things and to explore and to work on ourselves. Great time for spiritual practices and also for creativity. But overall, as you can see, the week is quite intense. We have Mercury retrograde, we have a new moon, we have the sun squaring Saturn and Pluto, and Mars retrograde. We have opposition between Venus and Neptune. So quite intense week, but these are also the times when we can make big changes. So don't think that everything should be like, on hold and life stops. We should do the best that we can with what we have at the time. That's my personal philosophy. So I hope it was helpful for you. Don't forget to join me on Instagram tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern, and also to check your daily horoscopes in stories there. Last call for our Astrology Academy. If you want to learn astrology in a really deep and advanced level, this is the place for you. Check the links or contact me if you need more information. Have a wonderful week, everyone, and I will see you tomorrow on Instagram.